the climate problem was not created by software in the first place. It's not going to be solved by software in the first place. Hardware is key to it. On-ground solutions are key to solving for climate. To be able to make massive impact, we really need to get our hands dirty. Food waste, when it goes untreated and it goes to the landfill, it emits methane. Now, methane is a gas which is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide on a 20-year time frame. Our early estimates are telling us that every ton of food waste that we treat is going to have a downstream impact of 2 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent mitigation just via the application of these fertilizers. If you want to stand out and if you really want to build a lasting business, you need to have both of these really strong. One is the technology innovation and the other is...
Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Ankita from BillionCarbon. In part 1, we dove deep into India's massive food waste challenge and how BillionCarbon is tackling it with some impressive technology. Just to recap what we covered, Ankita walked us through the broken food soil loop caused by industrialization and the population growth, and how their 3-day precision treatment technology is achieving up to 95% biomass reduction. That's double the efficiency of traditional composting machines in a fraction of the time. We also discussed their business model targeting bulk waste generators that with a deployment plus operating fee structure, and their solid traction with the 6 operational sites across Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Pune, and including that major Adani pilot that took a year to close. We also touched on how the new Solid Waste Management 2026 rules are creating a strong policy tailwinds by mandating on-site treatment for bulk generators. Now in part 2, we are going to shift gears and talk about the entrepreneurial journey, startup founding, the carbon credit opportunity, and some of the technical questions we didn't get to cover in the part 1. Ankita, ready to dive in?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So let me then kick off with the first question today. So last time when we spoke, we did speak about the liquid biofertilizer concentrate that is micronutrient rich. Now my question is, how do you ensure consistency across different batches and the waste streams? So what did it take scientifically and operationally to get the farmers to trust the product, or is it still in R&D right now?
Yes, so technically, yes, it is still in R&D and field trials because agricultural cycles are pretty long. The fastest you can go is really 18 to 24 months because multiple agricultural cycles need to be tested and then the results need to be proven time in and time again before you can actually productize it and then commercialize it. So that cycle is long. We are currently incubated with Anand Agricultural University and backed by the Government of India under the Raftar scheme, where all of this initiative is going for that. Now, in terms of your question around how do we standardize it, how do we get farmers to trust it, that is, of course, a long and arduous process. And that is the reason why we don't see a lot of players in this market in terms of, organic alternatives that can really scale, because the process of approvals, the process of getting the right approvals and the distribution network is quite long. We have started on that journey. The first thing that you asked about was the standardization. So what we do is, of course, given our outputs are made out of food waste, there is a variability expected, right? It's not a precision, you put this much amount of nitrogen, this much amount of ammonia, phosphate, whatever, right? So this is not a precision factory manufactured urea or DAP, which will have the exact same configuration every time.
Right.
The variability is where nature comes in, right? And what we need is to have a range of standardization rather than have a specific amount of metric or a number that we touch every time in a batch. And that range is usually quite standard, given the process that we follow in terms of the technology. So for example, the ranges of the humic fulvic acids will always range from a certain number to a certain number. Now, we have regular tests on batches before we send it for field trials. And that is how we maintain the standardization across the entire system of batches of the fertilizer. Of course, as we go along, we are learning more. And the most important thing here is that different crops require a different nutrition profile in different seasons and in different applications. And that is where an organic based or a microbial based fertilizer outperforms a chemical based fertilizer, because the microbial colonies, the CFUs, that we have in our fertilizers, they don't supply nutrients directly. They help the plant roots uptake the nutrients that it needs in exactly the amount that the plant needs at that time. They're called NPK mobilizers rather than NPK. So NPK stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. What chemical fertilizers do is they give a certain dose of NPK to the plant system or the agricultural system. A lot of it gets run off into the groundwater, and runoff is a big problem. What any organic fertilizer or a natural bacterial colony fertilizer would do is mimic nature, which is essentially make sure that the bacterial colonies are NPK mobilizers, which are supplying the exact amount of nutrition that the plant needs at that time. So that is the entire science behind it in very layman terms, I would say. And that is what helps us develop the standardization standards, because that's the first thing. And then go on to the next step of conducting field trials and then going forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, just to understand this thing better. I believe you would have multiple setups of this biodigesters there. So you would have the extracts from each of them. Do you then homogenize it to have a consistent sort of a liquid fertilizer?
That's right. Yes, yes. So we have, so every site that we operate has bioreactors, and these are modular bioreactors. So each of them give out the liquid biofertilizer concentrate, which is technically a biostimulant. And it also gives out the solid frass compost at the end of the month. Now, along the one main step in standardization is the homogenization, which is we don't test every sample individually, but we actually mix a lot of samples and then we create a batch. That's what a batch is, right? And that batch is essentially homogenized. So even if different biofertilizers, even if different bioreactors have seen very different food waste as an input initially during the last 1 month, during the last 2 months, the final product that we have after the entire homogenization of the batch is very standardized in itself. So that is, that is like the key to it, I would say.
Well, I think that clarification makes it that much more clear. Because I mean, I was just going through one other article where today the problem of India's dependence on the fertilizers. I mean, with the ongoing war, much of it is imported from elsewhere, which could lead to a potential shortage of food here in India. I mean, that's a kind of discussion. And on top of it, in states like Punjab, because of excessive fertilization, that is application of NPK on the soil, and this nutrients not being absorbed by the plants, they then get run off by the maybe the rainwater, which then harms the underground water and everything around. So when you have this very clear differentiator that what you produce is a NPK mobilizer, which enhances the plant's ability to absorb the nutrients, which could also be a potential solution to these farmlands where excessive fertilizers, it might not end up in the wrong places there. So Ankita, I mean, firstly, thank you for providing that clarity around NPK mobilizers and the way that you maintain consistency with the entire output. Now here is a clear climate story here that is preventing methane emissions from the landfills and enhancing the soil carbon through better inputs. How are you thinking about carbon credits or performance-based climate finance as a part of your model? That is, I'm referring to the present CCTS participation. Do you have any plans for this?
So we do have plans, although we have not implemented any of it right now because we are at an early stage, right?
Right.
And generation of carbon credits, getting them verified, etc., is in itself an expensive process. Just to get yourself registered and approved is an investment of 25 to 30 lakh rupees. Strategically, we know that that's not something we want to spend on right now. And we also know that whenever we do it in the future, which is probably going to be over the next 1 to 2 years, we will be able to claim retroactive credits as well. So hence, right now, we have set it aside as a goal for ourselves, but it is in the plan. It is definitely in the 2-year roadmap for us.
Just for our listeners, just to understand how the solution that you today provide helps in carbon emission reduction. Maybe you could just talk a little more on that.
Yes. So there are two avenues of carbon dioxide equivalent mitigation in our solution. Ours is a circular economy solution. So the first avenue is the treatment of the actual food waste. And the second avenue is the utilization of the outputs, which is the fertilizers. So food waste, when it goes untreated and it goes to the landfill, it emits methane. Now, methane is a gas which is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide on a 20-year time frame. That makes it very, very powerful greenhouse gas. Also, what we were just discussing about the UV radiation becoming more and more potent, that is impacted by methane because methane is actually impacting the ozone layer, which reduces the impact of UV radiation on the surface of the earth. Because of global warming, we are now seeing that impact as well. And we are seeing that UV radiation is increasing in places where it was not a problem earlier, in seasons when it was not a problem earlier. And due to that, now it becomes impossible to go out even at 10 a.m. Earlier, 10 a.m. used to be a very normal time of going out, right?
Out of the day.
So those are the impacts of the greenhouse gases in terms of treating of the actual food waste. In terms of numbers, we know that every ton of food waste that we treat mitigates 0.5 tons of CO2e during the process. The second part is the utilization of the products, the outputs, which is two byproducts. One is the liquid biofertilizer, which is technically a biostimulant, and the other is the solid frass compost. Now, both of them are highly potent, currently in R&D and field trials, and both of them, when applied on the field, act as replacing chemical fertilizers. That's one. And the second is soil carbon sequestration. So soil carbon sequestration is a direct TCO2e mitigation. And the other is even replacing chemical fertilizers is a carbon dioxide equivalent mitigation in the form that it reduces the entire upstream upstream emissions of production of the petroleum-based fertilizer.
Right.
Right? Things like urea, things like DAP. And that makes this a huge opportunity for carbon dioxide equivalent mitigation. Our early estimates are telling us that every ton of food waste that we treat is going to have a downstream impact of 2 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent mitigation just via the application of these fertilizers.
Very, very fascinating. And there is a huge opportunity there. I think, of course, India's CCTS is very young at this point in time. Perhaps when it matures, you'll be at the right place at the right time. Just to summarize for our listeners, so there are three levels or three layers to the mitigation that you mentioned. One is a mitigation by replacing the traditional way of landfilling food waste, which kind of saves methane there. Two is the output that the technology produces, the fertilizers, the liquid fertilizers, which will replace the petrol or crude oil based fertilizers like urea and
Yes.
DAP. And also it enhances the soil carbon sequestration, which adds on to the entire carbon sequestration. So multiple layers of carbon saving happening there, and the early numbers that you just mentioned, that for every ton of food saved, you have roughly 2 tons of carbon dioxide mitigated. So that's a job well done. Ankita, now let me
Yes.
ask you a different question. You have
Hmm.
raised non-dilutive funds and been a part of global accelerators and recognitions, including UN, World Economic Forum platforms. So, what did those experience teach you about how to position climate hardware plus service business to global capital?
Uh, okay, quite a loaded question. So, what did those experiences teach me? And then what did they teach me about positioning ourselves?
Right.
I think we've been fortunate enough to get those validations quite early in our journey,
Hmm.
majorly because of the kind of problem we chose to solve, which nobody else is really solving for, which is food
Right.
waste, because it's such a tricky problem. And especially getting those recognitions from World Economic Forum, from United Nations, from BRICS in Russia, and several more, Green Man Group in Ireland. Uh, they are a testament that the solution we are building is not just India specific. It is something
Right.
that the world requires right now.
Hmm.
That was the major validation that we received. In terms of what I learned in terms of positioning ourselves is we might be starting with India. However, we know that our dream needs to be global. And
Right.
that is a major shift of positioning that comes with having that kind of exposure of, yes, the World Economic Forum believes in us. Yes, United Nations believes in us. And these are the top organizations of the world when it comes to climate tech solutions, right? And I think that is what has shaped our entire worldview in terms of how to build a business. And that is majorly the reason why we are not going the way most startups do of
Hmm.
let's first build in India, let's build the operations, and then maybe 5 to 10 years later, we'll think about expanding. We're not thinking like that. We're thinking about, okay, let's set up a self-sustaining stream in India, which can then become a self-replicating business. Of course, there will be hurdles which we will solve for. In parallel, can we start exploring other markets? And hence, we are now looking at a pilot in 2026 in Ireland. Same technology, very different use case, which is a farm to fertilizer model rather than treating food waste on site model. So all those things are possible only because very strongly from across the world that the world needs a food waste solution which is doable and which is good, and that's where we come
Yeah.
in. I think that is how we have been positioning ourselves. um, and in terms of your thought about hardware solution first and then operations combined with that, the thing is climate the climate problem was not created by software in the first place. It's not going to be solved by software in the first place. Hardware is key to it. On ground solutions are key to solving for climate. Although I
Hmm.
come from an IT background, it did take me about 2 years to realize that to be able to make massive impact, we really need to get our hands dirty. And in our case, with food waste, literally dirty.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's a very interesting insight that you also provide here. That if you were to build a solution not just for India but for global, because uh, the
Yeah.
problem of food waste is not just in India. It is a global persistent problem, and now it is even more
Yes.
than before. So my
Yeah.
follow-up question to this was exactly like, how do I mean, if I'm a new startup founder wanting to get access into this very domain, how do I get access to all
Hmm.
these platforms, like platforms that you got recognition from, like the World Economic Forum, the BRICS, and all of that. So what is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that I need? And perhaps you have given me an answer already. That is, if you have a solution that is globally solving a very key problem and a very pressing problem,
Hmm.
perhaps being on these platforms is, or getting access to these platforms is easier. But even having said that, do you have any tips or any suggestions for a young startup founder who wants to break through in this very domain, to get access to capital? Because capital is something that all founders want, right? To be able to
Yeah,
sustain
yeah, yeah.
for the initial few years. So what would your suggestions be for them?
So there are two parts to your question. One is how do you get recognition from the global platforms, and the other is
Yeah.
how do you raise capital, non-dilutive capital. These are two very different things, honestly. In terms of getting recognition from global platforms, there are majorly two things needed in any startup. One is a technology innovation, and the
Mm-hmm.
other is the business model. Now, a lot of startups which are building businesses rather than having a technology innovation are usually business model innovations. Those stand out less. Then there are the other kind which are usually technology innovations but are done by scientists and they are unable to back it up by a strong business model.
Mm-hmm.
Again, those stand out less. If you want to stand out, and if you really want to build a lasting business, you need to have both of these really strong. One is the technology innovation, and the other is the strong business model.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have those, then you can create a strong storyline around this, which actually people remember. And that is the most important thing when you are in your messaging, right? Because in any kind of scenario, you will always have to keep pitching about what you do, how you do, and what impact it has.
Right.
And your pitches will be ranging from a 1 minute elevator pitch, 3 minute elevator pitch, to a 5 minute, 8 minute, 10 minute, or a 15 minute or half an hour investor pitch. And all these pitches need to be tuned for the audience that is listening to your pitch at that time, and it needs to be tuned to the time frame that you have. For example, for the United Nations SCAP recognition, we went through multiple rounds of interviews, multiple rounds of pitching sessions, a lot of sessions, workshops, etc. And the final pitch that we had to give was just a 3 minute pitch. And 3 minutes is very difficult if you have to convey your problem, your solution, your technology innovation, your business model, your traction, so far, everything in those 3 minutes, right? And that takes practice. It takes a lot of iteration. It takes a lot of mentoring from people who have already done it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fortunate enough to have that mentoring or to find that mentoring, which was of value to us. So that's the part of getting recognition from the global platforms. Of course, the first thing is you need to apply to them. Before applying, you need to create the storyline that I just spoke about, backed by a technology innovation and the business model.
Right.
The other part is how do you
Ankita, yeah.
start?
The other aspect is the non-dilutive funds. Maybe you could give some
Yes.
explanations around that.
Yeah, so I was just getting to that, which is the other part is the non-dilutive funding part. Again, it is just like fundraising, it is uncertain till you have it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been applying since we were born, since BillionCarbon was born, right? And earlier, our hit rate was quite low. It was, I think, 1 in 20 applications would go through. But as we have grown, we have narrowed down things such that the effort that we now spend on applications does reap better rewards. And that is due to various things. One, because our business has matured, our technology has matured, so our storyline has matured. And the other, because we are also able to filter in the applications which we know are the right fit for us and we would be the right fit for them. So not all applications are going to be the right fit for your kind of startup. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there are a lot of applications and funding opportunities out there which are focusing only on AI. We never apply to those. It's a waste of time for us. Even if it is AI and climate, we don't apply to those. We apply specifically to those who have climate as a major mandate. And if they have food waste as a mandate, then that's even better. So that is how you have to focus your efforts of fundraising. So non-dilutive funding is also fundraising. And one person or at least one of the founders' attention needs to be on it on a continuous basis if you are to raise funds that way. And it comes in different batches. For us, it has been like we have gotten non-dilutive funding as small as 25,000 from a competition and as big as multi lakhs, right? Or even touching crores. And that in itself is a journey in itself. And we have to treat it just like institutional fundraising. It needs time, it needs effort. Only then it is possible.
Right. I mean, there's this entire journey that you just narrated. It's almost as if it is effort versus reward, kind of
Yeah.
a decision to make. So for an early startup founder, do you recommend to have a team or a set of people just dedicated to look into this
No,
opportunities?
no, no. This is best done by the founder. This is
Hmm.
fundraising. You cannot undermine it.
Right, right.
You wouldn't entrust somebody else or your intern to do your institutional VC fundraising for you, right? As simple as that.
Right. I think that's a good insight again for a startup founder who is wanting to start something on their own.
Mm.
But again, I mean, what you also mentioned is finding the right set of people to mentor you to make this pitches, which range anywhere from 30 minutes to compressing them to 3 minutes or even less than that.
1 minute.
So
Yeah.
yeah, 1 minute as well, and sometimes I did the
So
CC on Shark.
we had one competition. We had a 1 minute wala competition,
Uh,
which we also eventually won, which was like 30,000 rupees.
okay,
And that was very difficult because earlier they had not told the time limit, and then everybody reaches there, and then they're like, okay, now you have 1 minute to present your solution, and then everybody was in scrambles. But fortunately, because we knew our story and how I could present it in 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, so we were able to do it well.
great.
So
So
yeah.
if somebody were pitching their mode to somebody, what are the top three things that they should include in the pitch?
If you were presenting your startup to somebody, right?
Hmm. Yes.
For 1 minute or 3 minutes, right? The
Yeah.
most important things are one, problem. What is the problem you are solving? And how much time you're spending on that in terms of out of the 1 minute or 3 minutes. That depends on who you are talking to. If you're talking to a climate person, a one-liner of food waste is a big problem. 60 billion kgs of food waste is dumped into India's landfills every day. That's enough. But
Hmm.
if I am talking to an AI-based VC and they're just in general asking me or chatting me up, then I will start from one step before that and explain more about the problem, right? I would spend more time on the problem in that case than on the solution, because if they do not identify with the problem, the solution is useless, right? Then the second thing is your technology solution or your business model solution or your entire solution. How you are doing it, what you are doing, what is so unique about it. That's the most important thing. What is so unique about it? That you need to communicate in 1 or 2 sentences. And then, depending on who you are talking to, what kind of a pitch it is, you would want to include your business model and the traction that you have so far, and what are your future plans or your dream. And these, I think, are the 5 main things. Now, of course, if you have more time, you would also want to include a little about your market. So what we do is, when we don't have much time and we have to compress it, we just use a very half line thing for the market, that it is a $300 billion global opportunity along the
The
food supply
TAM.
chain. That's all we
Hmm.
see about the market, right? And that just sets the stage that we are not talking about just India, but we are talking about globally as a whole. And these are the couple of things that you will find everybody telling you that you should include in your pitches. And it works. The problem is, for a startup, for a founder, they are the only person who knows or who will be able to figure out how to make it work for their startup. And
Right.
that takes practice, it takes iterations. It might take hundreds of iterations right? To get the story right, to get the actual messaging right, that gets the wow factor in every sentence.
Hmm.
And that is
Hmm.
the key.
So iteration is definitely the key, but the top few things to definitely
Definitely.
include is one, the problem statement in very short thing, and the TAM, the total addressable market, the size of it, the USP, the uniqueness of the solution that you provide, perhaps. Maybe these are the top three aspects to include in the pitch among the other.
I wouldn't include market in the top three, because
Okay.
if you are doing the problem right, then the market becomes secondary to that.
Hmm.
Problem, solution, and your business model. These would be
Right.
the top three things. Because
Top three to
if a
include.
person understands this,
Hmm.
then everything else can come in the Q&A or the question and answers or the tell me more about this part, that kind of a
Right.
thing.
Right. Um, okay. So one other thing that stands out for me, I mean, in your case is you being bootstrapped right from day one and then looking for funds here.
Yes,
So
yes.
my follow-up question to the same is this: that one of your themes that you suggested is building without a factory. For a hardware-led founders listening, what are the principles you use to decide what not to own and where to partner?
Yeah, so for us, we are not selling hardware, right? We are selling a service. So the hardware is a way to provide the service. And hence, we don't have to continuously manufacture our bioreactors. I'll give you an example. Let's say if we are setting up a site, manufacturing of the bioreactors for that one site will happen once. And then for 3 years, that site is okay. Then it's just operations on that site, right?
Right.
Hence, the manufacturing part, at least in the initial times, we absolutely knew that we don't want to create a factory of our own. Hence, we are using OEM partners, multiple OEM partners to distribute the risk in terms of the quality, in terms of the timelines of delivery as well. So, hence the no factories model. Also, this helps us in keeping a no inventory model.
Right.
One of the biggest cash drain for a hardware startup is holding inventory, because you've already put in the cash. It is just lying there, not making any money for you. And you probably have a warehouse where it is stored. And that is something very important to optimize for every kind of startup. For us, the no inventory model works pretty well, especially because every site, when we deploy, we do have timelines of 1 month to 2 months to be able to deploy them. So we have
Mm-hmm.
timelines in terms of buffer to get it manufactured, get the bioreactor manufactured, and then go and deploy it on the site. So we really don't need to hold inventory right now. It will change as we go
Yeah.
forward,
As you
because
scale. Yeah.
we will need to compress the timelines of deployment, and we will need to work along with OEM partner schedules, or maybe have a factory of our own which can churn out bioreactors quicker than we need, right? Right now, this is the model we are following, which actually makes it a no risk business model, because the deployments are funded by the client, the operations are funded by the client, the inventory is held and manufactured
By the
by the
OEMs.
OEM partner. Yes. So for us, right now, this becomes a no-risk business model, which is very quickly replicable. And the only thing we need to do is go sell and run the operations. So yeah.
Right. A smart move. A smart move. So let's now switch gears. I think you have given if there is an early startup founder listening to this conversation, perhaps they would have found a lot of value with how to pitch, how to pace your pitch, what are the things to be included in the pitch, what does a non-dilutive fund mean, how can you raise funds without seeking for VC venture capitalist investments there, and also you're spoken about the low risk business model that you today run, where you don't own the manufacturing as of now, given that the company is in its early stages. Perhaps when you scale, there might be a necessity to bring this within your purview. Now let's switch gears to the theme that we initially decided upon, which is the Vikasat Bharat. So here we're going to touch the systems change, policy, ecosystem gaps, and the carbon mandal question, which is how consulting firms like ourselves can collaborate with BillionCarbon. So I want to end by zooming back out from one startup and one solution to a larger system where we are all trying to change, right? So my first question in this segment is this: that if you had to pick one or two policy levers that would dramatically accelerate responsible food waste treatment in Indian cities, what would they be? You did mention about the solid waste management policy 2026, but what more?
Yeah. I think in India, we are already seeing the tailwinds of policy change. If there were one lever to be pulled, it is the entire policy ecosystem of the Swachh Bharat mission. And I think it's already in the making for the last 10 years. And despite what others might believe, there might have been shortcomings, of course, things could have been done better. But Swachh Bharat mission has been a 10 to 20-year project, and it has been executed pretty well, right? For a country like India, where the inherent habit of people is to eat and just throw the garbage right there, even if it is just outside their house.
Yeah.
Changing that mindset has been a big shift, right? What it has needed is infrastructural development, process changes, incentivization, compliance being put in, and enforcement of those compliances. Now, the first four things have come in the last 10 years, and the enforcement of the compliance is now coming with the Solid Waste Management 2026 rules, especially for bulk waste generators, because that's where 50% of the food waste is generated. And I think that's going to be really key, because so far, okay, people have now come into the mindset that yes, we need to do something about our solid waste management, all kinds, not just food waste. And if we are generating the food waste, or if we are generating any kind of waste, we are also responsible for it. Bulk waste generators have that feeling now. Households still don't have that feeling, but of course, that's the next step. And I think that entire ecosystem that is being built is extremely key to where we are going from here. The second thing is, of course, innovation needs to go hand in hand with policy.
Right.
And we believe we are going to be a key part of that. When I say innovation, what it means is that, see, the government can create policies. The government can say you have to do this, otherwise you're not compliant. But if it does not make economic or operational sense for the bulk waste generator, they will always try to find loopholes, and they will always try to evade the policy and the compliance, which is what has been happening with OWC machines and biogas plants. So OWC machines they came in with a lot of fanfare 10 years ago that, okay, Swachh Bharat Mission, SWM guidelines 2016, OWC machines should be everywhere. This is the best solution. What eventually happened was CapEx is very huge, operating costs are very huge, daily operations are very problematic. And so even if a bulk waste generator has 1 ton of waste, just for compliance purposes, they will set up a 100 kg per day OWC machine, which they will probably not even use, just for compliance sake. And this is the reality as of today. That's going to change now because, of course, the mandates have changed. And that's, yeah. And it was in the making. So the SWM 2016 guidelines really set the stage to get people to start thinking about what are you going to do about your own solid waste, right? And then innovation followed from there. A lot of people started working on how do you handle solid waste, different kinds. It could be sanitary waste, it could be plastic waste, food waste, biomedical waste, all those. And then we started seeing some innovation come in the market. Some were good, some failed. New innovations came in. However, those innovations did not get the push they needed because it was just a guideline before this. What that means for bulk waste generators was that budget had to be created. It did not exist.
Right.
Which means that budget will always compete with, can we deploy it for new growth initiatives? Can we deploy it for a new building construction, or should we deploy it for a food waste management, right? And that is where the entire economics is now shifting with the compliance enforcement.
Right.
which is extremely key to the entire ecosystem.
Right. I think then
Sorry,
the
I
Swachh
think I went on an emotional digression over there,
No,
but
no.
yeah, this is quite close to my heart. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As a founder who has built a solution for a problem that's so genuine and requires attention, being so invested in
Hmm.
it is necessary as well. And as you rightly put, I mean, many do complain that the Swachh Bharat mission has been a failure. Even I don't agree to it entirely, because definitely the country has seen
Hmm.
some change with how we view waste. I mean, of course, if it is, I mean, we are a population of 1.5 billion people. So getting it through across to every individual would take time, but at least for the bulk generators, now that this very policy has reached its enforcement, perhaps the implementation will only increase, and there will be budget set aside given that compliance mandates them to do the same. You have seen on ground realities of waste contracts, tender design, and infrastructure procurement. Where do you see misalignment between how contracts are written, and the climate and the soil outcomes that we actually want? Do you see there is a misalignment in the first place?
So the misalignment, I wouldn't really call it misalignment, but it is just the goals with which tenders or contracts are crafted, right?
Hmm.
And the goals right now are pretty straightforward. Treat the waste, get
Right.
rid of the waste, right? They do not think much about the downstream outputs and how they can be utilized or should be utilized in terms of nutrient recovery into fixing soil degradation. And that's because that has been the first step. That is also because there is no solution in the market which can viably do this at scale.
Right.
We are the first solution who are trying to do this at scale in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a humongous problem to solve. And that is where I think that's hence I said I wouldn't call it misalignment, but it's just that the goals that are fixed are right for the person fixing it, the organization fixing it, but may not be the end goal for us as a society or as Earth or as climate action, right? Which will come eventually. And like I said, policy and innovation always go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot create a tender for which nobody will apply to because they cannot meet all requirements, right? They need
Right.
to create a tender for which at least 4 or 5 people apply, and then they can pick the lowest bid.
Right.
So it's usually like that.
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, we do see a lack of systems perspective there, where each
Mm.
stakeholder views the problem from their own perspective, which leads to perhaps the misalignment that does exist, which perhaps you being the first of the kind trying to solve for a problem, in this case food waste. I mean, I have a follow up to the same question, that um,
Hmm.
we just need the right business models and scale. This is what you just mentioned. It has to
Yes.
be addressing the right problem at the right price point, and give a more holistic solution to it. So, for young
Hmm.
professionals in India, what are the biggest white spaces you see in climate and circularity? Are there opportunities where young professional or young startup founders can explore and look for opportunities?
Oh, absolutely. Lots and lots and lots of opportunities. There is a resource that we used and I still use on a day-to-day basis, which is called the Drawdown Project, DRAWDOWN, Drawdown Project.
Hmm.
And that is an entire project which studies climate problems. What are the possible climate solutions to that? What is the impact of each solution? And they've broken that solution down into sub-solutions as well. For example, wind is broken down into onshore, offshore, everything, right? And how much impact would this particular solution have if this were scaled to, let's say, XYZ? So that's a global scale system that they have developed.
Hmm.
Very comprehensive. And that is how we realize that one of the top 5 problems which is causing climate change is food waste. And food
Hmm.
waste is something nobody is solving for. That is the reason why we started working in food waste.
Right.
So that is
But
the go-to resource.
Right,
for,
but within the entire supply chain that you're now trying to build, with your
yeah,
OEMs providing for the setup, design, and
yeah.
all of that, and you being the operators, and then you're trying to build an entire ecosystem there.
Hmm.
So, are there any white spaces within that ecosystem that you're trying to build where people can try and plug in?
In terms of partnerships with us, is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
yes.
Oh, okay. Even there, I think lot of spaces, like we are always looking for improvements across the board. I'll name a few, right? One is lead generation and deal closure.
Mm.
Then, of course, because we are expanding into new regions very quickly. We are currently in 3 cities. We want to expand to about 8 to 10 cities by the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
The other is the manufacturing of the bioreactor. Now, our current manufacturing is only in Ahmedabad. As we go to, let's say, Bangalore or Chennai, we will want local manufacturers over there. And that is going to be one of the key things to keeping our costs and emissions internally also down, so that the transportation cost of the bioreactors um, after they're manufactured is reduced to a minimum. And the third thing is our outputs ecosystem, which is the liquid biofertilizer, liquid biostimulant, and the solid frass compost. So currently, we have not commercialized it, but we are now in the process of creating an ecosystem of how do we create a distribution channel for them? How do we create a standardized product out of it? How do we
Mm-hmm.
actually go and sell it? Is it going to be a B2C initially? Do we sell it on Amazon? Do we sell it on Blinkit? Do we sell it for gardening? Or do we directly wait for agriculture and farmer, creating it as a farmer input? Um, so these are the things across the entire value chain that we are always looking for partners, I would say,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
help us out.
Uh, I think then the opportunities that does exist. I mean, of course,
Oh, there's
it
one more
might not be
thing.
well defined at this point in time. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's actually one more thing, which is operating partners. So we are
Hmm.
a technology provider, and we work with operating partners on the ground in the cities that we operate in. And so those operating partners help with the on-ground operations, and we are the technical know-how, technical supervision, all of that. And so that is another place where organizations can partner with us.
Great. I mean, like I said, a lot of opportunities given that you're perhaps the first movers in this very space,
Hmm.
which might not be very well defined on how and where people can plug in. But given that you have spoken on these opportunities that does exist, I would believe that when this solution can be scaled, more opportunities would then be bought out
Absolutely. Yeah,
because
yeah.
you have a dream of creating some numbers of jobs. If you can maybe throw some light on that.
100,000.
How many?
We actually have a dream of generating 100,000 climate jobs, 1 lakh climate jobs, and impacting 600,000 farmers by 2030.
Wow.
So yeah.
Very ambitious and definitely achievable there. So Ankita, I have one last question for you before we call
Yes.
this a wrap. So this is more coming from self-interest. So how could consulting partners like Carbon Mandal working on ESG strategy, carbon accounting, supply chain emissions, and implementation add meaningful value to ventures like Billion Carbon and to the enterprises that you serve? Uh, can you think of any?
I can think of lots actually, Roshan, and you and I have discussed about this so
Discussed
many
about
times.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think our first project as a partner was with you, where we were doing some market research and some understanding of where the emissions would come from in this kind of a solution. And that gave us a very good start in terms of, okay, this will be a viable business to build. So I think I will start right from there, right? Market research in terms of analysis of the market. If we are, let's say, entering a new market or entering with a new technology,
Mhm.
and then going forward to when we have a technology, when we have an existing market, then how do we adopt more within that in terms of let's say the emissions reduction optimization, or internal certifications like we were talking about, which can give us more credibility and backing in front of our clients. So those are the couple of main things that I can think about. And then there are, of course, so many ancillary things that come from that as a sub project. For
Right.
example, um, like I mentioned, we are going to be now preparing to get into the carbon credits space and generate carbon credits of our own. So we will require help for that. So yeah, lots of places where consulting firms like yours can help us.
Yeah, I mean, we have spoken about it off camera, but
Yeah.
I think for even other consulting firms who are listening to this conversation, perhaps they could take you
Mhm.
and add more value to the entire solution that you're trying to today provide and the ecosystem that you're trying to build. Uh, so Ankita, thank you so
Yes.
much. I mean, since we could not cover it in one go, we have managed to cover it in two separate parts. But it has been an absolute privilege and a lot of fun conversations in between as well. I know we have perhaps recorded for roughly 4 hours of maybe
Yes. Yeah.
yeah put together.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how the final product is going to come out, but given that we have recorded close to 4 hours, we should at least have 2 hours of content that should be good to be put out on YouTube and other platforms.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
any final words, parting words that you would like to say before we call it a wrap?
I think the pleasure is all mine talking to you, Roshan, because I know we've been trying to schedule this for a long time, and now we've finally been able to record this.
Yeah,
And the conversations we had, so thoughtful, so thought through. The thought-provoking questions, I think they lead me to places where I should actually be thinking about more in terms of, so what happens on a day-to-day basis in a founder's life is we get bogged down by operations, we get
yeah,
bogged down by the whirlwind. And it's very important to just step out of that mind frame and see things from a bird's eye view. And
yeah.
that is what your conversation has really helped me do. So thank you for that.
Great. I mean, that's exactly what we try to achieve through these conversations. One is to give perspectives so that even not just for us having this conversation, but even for listeners, it gives them a fresh perspective on the same problem. Because every day, when I mean, as you rightly said, for a founder. When you're boxed down and you have that thing where you're thinking from those straight jacket now
Mhm.
it gives you more perspectives to think on, and perhaps that allows for better brainstorming as well. And I genuinely hope this conversations leads to further engagement, more business, and more lead generation in the coming days. I'll give an outro before I stop the recording. So
Sure.
uh, Ankita, thank you so much for joining us today. For listeners who want to go deeper, you can learn more about Billion Carbon's work and explore potential collaboration at www.billioncarbon.com. You can connect with Ankita on LinkedIn to follow her journey and insights on climate entrepreneurship and circularity. If you're a business leader managing campuses, hotels, industrial kitchens, or large facilities, and you're serious about turning food waste from a cost center to a climate positive asset, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to Ankita, given that now the solid waste management 2026 rules are being enforced. At Carbon Mandal, we help organizations design and execute credible sustainability strategies across ESG road mapping, carbon accounting, scope 1 to 3 emissions, and circular economy interventions. If this conversation has sparked questions about how your organization handles waste, measures emissions, and or designs climate aligned business models, visit www.carbonmandal.com to explore how we can work together. You can also reach out to us for a tailored diagnostic, carbon decarbonization roadmaps, and implementation support that connects solutions like BillionCarbon to your broader ESG strategy. Ankita, thank you again for joining us on the Carbon Circle and for you and your team uh, are doing to turn food waste into climate action. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you found this episode valuable, do share it with your colleague who is wrestling with waste, ESG targets, or circularity inside their organization. Until next time, I'm Roshan Rai, and this has been the Carbon Circle, honest and meaningful conversation on what it will truly take to build a sustainable Bharat by 2047. Thank you, one and all.